telling you something just crossed my feed that gave me chills. It has some dark and wide-ranging implications for what we're going to be covering in the next couple of months. Get ready for some bombshells. Dan Bongino's most chilling post yet, saying that he was shaken to the core and that Dan Bongino is literally scared about what they've just uncovered at the FBI as it pertains to deep state corruption. During my tenure here as Deputy Director of the FBI, I've repeatedly relayed to you the things that are happening that might not be immediately visible, but they are happening. The Director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations. It is a priority for us. But what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into the aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I have just learned. We're going to conduct these righteous and proper investigations by the book and in accordance with the law. We are going to get the answers we all deserve. And with any investigation, I cannot predict where it will land. But I can promise you an honest and dignified effort at the truth. Not my truth or your truth, the truth. God bless America and all those who defend her. Respectfully, Dan. This has been seen by 3 million people. It's got 20,000 reposts. It's only been up for like 2 hours. Right now, 94,000 likes. What could Dan Bongino be looking at? Well, I have 2 leads on this. And this, by the way, is something that is some privileged information. But what's going on right now is an enormous amount of classified and unclassified information has been sent over to the Department of Justice by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, stamping out public corruption and political weaponization of law enforcement and intelligence operations. There's your clue. Dan Bongino's looking into Barack Obama. Dan Bongino's looking into Barack Hussein Obama and James Comey and what happened at the FBI. And he's got a mother load of information from Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, and he's blown away at what he's seen and what they've uncovered internally in the building with the launch of hoaxes against President Trump and the weaponization of these federal law enforcement agencies. I think that Dan Bongino's uncovered something about Barack Obama. I think that Dan Bongino's uncovered something about Hillary Clinton. Dan Bongino obviously has also potentially gotten some new information about Jeffrey Epstein that may well be also this. I'm not telling you that I have a definitive bead on this. I'm just telling you that you can read the tea leaves, let's just say, on this kind of stuff.
Hey, you realize that it's not over yet, right? What we just saw last Friday and then on Wednesday of this past week from Tulsi Gabbard was just the beginning. There's a lot more coming. I want to take you back to a conversation that Dan Bongino had on Fox and Friends back in May. Do you remember this?
There are people there who are really horrified at what happened. And there was a room, and we found stuff. And a lot of it's from the Comey era. And we are working our damnedest right now to declassify. And just so you know, because I get the public, I totally understand people saying, well, do it now. The process is not all the information is ours to declassify. Some is other intelligence agencies. It's not, we literally can't do it. Once that gets done and that gets out there and you read some of the stuff we found that, by the way, was not processed through the normal procedure, digitizing it, putting in FBI records. We found it in bags, hiding under Jim Comey's FBI. You're going to be stunned.
He warned you that you're going to be stunned when you see what they found and what they've been reviewing. Now, keep in mind, the stuff that Tulsi Gabbard released, it's not what he's talking about. He's talking about an entirely different set of information. Perhaps he's talking about this. So Dan Bongino released this over on X earlier today, and I'm not going to read the whole thing for you. You can go find it yourself or hit pause and read it now. But I'm going to read you the important part, where it says, the director and I committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and the intelligence operations. It is a priority for us. But what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into these aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. They led with the Epstein stuff to get your attention. Wake up. Then they gave you the Obama-led treasonous conspiracy. And now you're going to start to see the rest of what they were doing. Mark my words, Dan Bongino's post was not just him venting. No. It was a heads up. There's more coming.
Welcome to the show. Excuse me. August 1st, 2025, Friday Night Live. Thank you for being here. I want to make sure I'm good. Everything sounds good, looks good. It seems like we're good. A lot going on, man. I got hell of a broadcast for you tonight. We're going to get into this this Comey, Clapper, Obama, Hillary, Susan Rice, etc., etc. We're going to get into that tonight. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, whether you're on Rumble, Getter, Twitter, or the new YouTube channel, Inspector Web. And please subscribe to the channel, like, share, open source. Take any of this information, do whatever you want with it. All that I ask is that you mention me, along the way so I can be found, because for some reason we do have a hard time being found in some spots, probably because of what I put out. We've had to get a new YouTube channel, and we're just giving our best to get everything we can out to the public so people can hear and get the truth. And we're going to get into it tonight. We got some stuff that's pretty interesting as far as what we already know. If you've been here for my earpiece is giving me trouble. If you've been here for any length of time, you know that we don't candy coat it. We're just going to give it to you just however it is. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter if it's Trump acting, not doing things for the American people, or if it's the Democrats, or if it's whoever, whatever. Anytime, we're just going to give you the truth. That's just how we're going to do it. And, maybe that's not for some people, like the Q people. They think that, the plan. Well, I got to tell you, it's looking worse and worse every day. A lot of good things. I got to give credit where credit's due. Trump has really done a lot for the economy and different things like that. Although where I'm at, it went down about 75 cents and it jumped back up 50 cents. So it's like 3 steps forward and 7 steps back. But, I'm going to give him, his 7 months in office. I'm going to give him some time on that. As far as Epstein files, it's not going away. People are still talking about it. It's still very, very much headlines. It's everywhere. Everybody wants to know. They're not going to settle for just forget about it. It's a thing that's going on. We're going to cover a very small part of it. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of it. We already know what's going on. We already know that there's a cover up. We already know that a lot of different things is going on around the Epstein files. And I personally haven't really nailed it down exactly what it is, but I know that it's some sort of cover up, whether it's they spike the documents, or they're covering up for somebody, some advisor, Letnick, Epstein's neighbor or whatever. We don't know. We haven't got there yet. We're kind of waiting for the wind to hit the trees so the stuff will fall to the ground so we can figure out exactly the truth. But with that said, we got some stuff. It's interesting because in the Epstein files stuff, you got these people coming out talking about like, oh, I didn't know him. I never hung out with him. But yet there's pictures all over the internet like Kevin Spacey, he's like, oh, I didn't know him. But yeah, he's on the little bit of logs that we have that they have released, and stuff like that. Whether they're true logs or not, I'm not going to get into that. I don't know, because I haven't seen like this is from, DOD. This is proof that it was. So I don't know, but it sure is interesting that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Kevin Spacey comes out and he's, talking on MSNBC or wherever he's at, to say that he's not part of it. Anyway, that's kind of how, that's how they do it. They got to do the cover story before the indictments come. And from my understanding, he's got to answer some questions. I think he's got a subpoena to come in, and we'll play the clip in a minute, and we'll get to it. I got a new system going on here, so you're gonna have to bear with me just a little bit. It's not exactly the way I want it yet, but we're working on it. It's and by the way, if you're new here and you don't, maybe you're like, who's this dude? He shows up, he's got this red background and all that stuff. I'm a one-man show. I don't have, a bunch of editors and all that stuff. I do all this stuff my own. I run my own show and all that stuff. We're not big enough to be able to pay a bunch of people to come in and do a bunch of stuff. We built it and we have the technology, but we don't have the people yet. So, I said it a couple years ago when we were getting started. I think I've been about 5 years. I think 5 years we've been going here, and ebbs and flows. And I've always said that if there's somebody out there that wants to get involved with me, that that if you can be vetted and you're good, and you want to do some work with me, I'm willing to work with somebody and see if they can help me get this show to where it's out there in the public eye and all that stuff. Because I'm grinding away, doing the best I can to make this thing out, get this out there on the internet and all this stuff. But if you don't know, it's hard to get out there, but my information's top notch. I'm batting about 90. I'd say probably 95. I'll just give myself a 95. It's probably a little bit more, but I'll say 95% accurate. I've only had to come back and say, that was wrong a couple times in 5 years. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good average if I'm not patting myself on the back. Anyway, let's get into it. So we got we're gonna look at some stuff tonight. The reason why I played those clips right there in that the Benny Johnson and the other guy, I can't remember his name right offhand. He puts out these little clips. The reason why I did that is because I want you to know that I believe that exactly, like more's to come. Not like believe the plan, but more's to come around like all this stuff that's happening, because you have the Epstein stuff going on. You got the Tulsi Gabbard doing the media tour with all the DNI stuff and all the documents and all the, everything going on that. You got Luna coming out and she's like, we're investigating, we're turning over carpets and finding stuff. And, we got Bongino and them saying that they found documents hidden in burn bags. So there's stuff coming out, and whether it was hidden and they're bringing it out because they know that they can't hide it any longer because the American people aren't going for it, or if they did find a bag underneath somebody's desk, whatever it is, right? We're just gonna report whatever comes out. But I believe that some stuff's gonna hit. It's gonna hit. I believe it's gonna hit, and it's gonna be shocking from everything that I've heard, and I've heard it from several different sources, that there is a ton of stuff getting ready to happen. Hillary Clinton's getting ready to be indicted in the next couple months. Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Susan Rice. I mean, a whole bunch of them. They're getting ready to get indicted, and that'll be a good day. Even if they indict them, and it's a dud, at least there's some action, And I'm not saying that we should not prosecute all of them, because we should, for the corruption over the last 20 years. Really, it didn't start in 2015 when they were spying on Trump. It really started way before that, as we know, right? So let's get into this. All right, so let's just jump right in here. I'm going to play this John Bowne report real quick. We'll be right back, and then we'll break it down.
Ghislaine Maxwell, serving a 20-year sentence for her role in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking crimes, was interviewed by the Department of Justice under the Trump administration, sparking renewed interest in Epstein's network. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, a former Trump lawyer, met Maxwell in Tallahassee, Florida on July 24th through the 25th to probe potential information about others involved in Epstein's crimes.
I think Ghislaine did a wonderful job. She literally answered every question. She didn't say, you know what, don't ask me that. I'm not going to talk about this person. She was asked maybe about 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody. And she didn't hold anything back.
But her lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, declined to disclose specifics. The speculation fueled by this interview and the lingering question of a pardon concerning Maxwell revolve around Epstein's alleged ties to foreign entities, not just politicians and celebrities, as the plot thickens.
But a lot of people have asked about pardon. This is just not a time to be talking about pardons. Todd will come back with whatever he's got. You're making a very big thing over something that's not a big thing. You should be talking about, if you're going to talk about that, talk about Clinton, talk about the former president of Harvard, talk about all of his friends, talk about the hedge fund guys that were with him all the time. Don't talk about Trump.
The Democrats pushing Trump on this and trying to connect him to all of this has massively backfired. And I've been saying for 20 plus days since this all broke, Trump needs to lean into this and order everything released, and that's all starting. Democrat judges all over the country, Florida, New York, are trying to block the release of the Epstein files now.
Evidence suggesting Epstein's connections to Mossad and Russian entities continues to burrow down the rabbit hole.
So 21 trillion disappeared from DOD and HUD over the period that Epstein was operating. He went to the White House, his first time in the White House. Rubin, who became Secretary of Treasury, took him, I think, in 1994. And then Rubin goes to Treasury, money starts disappearing. And then, Epstein is ballooning fantastic amounts of money. So I think Epstein was laundering the money that was coming out of DOD. And if you look at his relationships with Mossad and Israeli intelligence, when Mossad is taking over DOD and the money's going missing, and we know the cybersecurity and IT in the Israeli sort of constellation was very active, in government at that time. So if you let the files out, people are going to connect the dots between Epstein, Mossad, the growing power of Israel, AIPAC, and then where did their pension fund money go?
Of course, Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, was alleged in books like Robert Maxwell's Israel Super Spy to have worked with Mossad. Similarly, Epstein's ties to Russian figures such as Sergei Belyakov, a former Russian official who assisted Epstein with a Russian model and visa issues, and Epstein's processing of millions through Russian banks suggest possible Russian intelligence interest. Ghislaine Maxwell's own activities also add to the scrutiny, particularly her Terramar project, a nonprofit founded in 2012 to promote ocean conservation, which likely functioned as a shell company. The New York Post reveals that Terramar, which shut down after Epstein's 2019 arrest, had minimal financial transparency and was linked to Epstein's funding of his illicit network, raising questions about its true purpose. The Terramar project raised approximately $197,000 in public donations over its operational years from 2012 to 2019. Maxwell loaned significant sums to keep the organization afloat, with tax filings indicating that by 2017, the nonprofit owed her $539,000, and by the end of 2018, this debt had increased to $561,000. The Terramar project was endorsed by the Clinton Global Initiative in 2013, but direct financial contributions are not clearly documented. Ghislaine's tech billionaire boyfriend at the time, Ted Waite, once donated $10 million to the William J. Clinton Foundation and was essential in getting the Terramar project funded. There are plenty more rocks that have yet to be turned over as the Epstein saga stumbles onward. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be said right there. And, when you look at, when you get back away from the conspiracy, there's such a conspiracy in the, hold on. There's such a conspiracy going on with the this whole thing, where who's there and all that stuff. The part that's really the important part is why and how it was funded and what exactly was involved with the money that was coming in and out of Epstein Island, or Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all that stuff. Like yeah, the kids, the child sex trafficking and all that stuff. Yeah, big major thing. That's what most people want to know the answers to. But when you go and step back a little bit and look at the money that was moving around and how it was being manipulated, because part of what Epstein apparently was doing was he was like a broker for people's money, and whether it was a money laundering operation, called a consultants, being a consultant or whatever for all these big deals in Washington and all over the globe and the UE, all these different places, and he would get, from what I've been able to uncover with my little bit of work on this, is he would have money would be moved around, and he would give people access to, whether it was Clinton or whoever, that's how the money kind of was flowing with the Epstein thing. And the kids was like a bargaining chip. And the bargaining chip was exactly that, a bargaining chip, until it was used for blackmail, when they would have these big name people, we'll use Bill Clinton as an example, or Kevin Spacey, or whoever. They would, or maybe a politician or something, that would come to one of the parties, and then they would drug them or whatever they were doing, and then videotape them. Because remember, Jeffrey Epstein's properties had cameras everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere in that place without being on film. So when they get you messed up on GHB or whatever the drug that they give people, because there's all kinds of different things, ketamine, all these different things, they would get them to a place where they could manipulate them, put a 14-year-old girl in there, or boy, or depending on what their flavor was, and then they would use that video, or that that blackmail video, to make sure that if they're a congressman or a senator, to make sure that they voted the way they were supposed to, with their inside people in there. They would be like, oh, hey, by the way, and we've seen this over and over and over, like, they would, there's a big bill getting ready to pass or not pass, and they're getting ready to vote on it. And all these people are up there at the podium talking about not going to vote for this bill because blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, they vote for the bill because of the blackmail part of this whole saga that's been going on for, 20 years, maybe longer, 30 years, however long Epstein had been doing this with Mossad or Israel or whoever, the globalists or whoever the main the funders of it, because this is all about the money, and who had the power was who was giving Epstein the money to gain the access. And then through the access, there would be this thing called bribery or blackmail. And so that's what I've been able to put together in my little bit of information, through the, all the different propaganda and all the different things that's going on with this whole thing that's been happening over the last, 3-4 months, where it's really been brought back up to the surface, and everything that I've been able to find. And so when you think about this, it's bigger, and as big as the kids part of it, the juveniles, or as big as that is, the bigger piece really is why Were they blackmailing people, and for what reason, and what transpired as a result of the blackmail? Like, what bills were passed when they shouldn't have been passed because somebody had senator sleeping with some young boy or girl, and they say, hey, if you don't do what we say, we're going to show this to your wife and your kids and your grandfather and your dad and your this and that. And that's how they would manipulate people in all these positions, whether it's United States, other countries, other cabinets, and all that stuff. And that's the bigger thing. Although, again, I have to say that the kids thing is, very not only disgusting and unacceptable, but how all this thing came about was about the money, not about the kids. The kids was like a pawn in the manipulation scheme to blackmail people to get what they wanted accomplished with corrupt government, whatever government. So that's what I've been able to piece together in my little thing. So I said that to say they're sick people. We know this. We know how sick these politicians are, and we know how sick Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all those people that hung out, Bill Clinton and all. We know. I mean, we know this. So anyway, let's get into that. That's we're gonna get into this. I wanted to see how I wanted to bring this over here, but I'm just gonna do it. Let's just get into this, and we'll come back and we'll talk about this on the other side. What I could tell you though about this whole thing is this: when you look at the Hillary Clinton, the Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Obama, and all those Democratic politicians that were supposed to be, because CIA, DOD, FBI, they're supposed to be nonpartisan. They're supposed to be, for the people, not for a political party, but they were all part of the deep state, probably the deep state. And when you look at all the different angles here, it starts to draw up a picture of like what was really going on with Crossfire Hurricane and Obamagate and all these different things. So we're going to get into this. So stand by. It's the other part of that first clip that we played. Stand by.
Former President Obama's office responded to the documents that you've released, calling them bizarre allegations or ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. What is your response to the former president?
They're doing the exact same thing that people like Senator Warner are doing. He was the head of the Intelligence Committee at the time. They would have to admit and actually address the details of their complicity in this, or their absolute failure in conducting the most basic responsibilities of, again, asking, where is this intelligence coming from? What are the sources? What proof do you have of these of this high confidence assessment? Remember, John Brennan and James Clapper at the time assessed, and James Comey, with high confidence that Russia aspired to help Donald Trump win the election in 2016, when there was no credible intelligence that actually reported that. So President Obama's very carefully worded response that came from his office, again, deflects away from addressing any of the truth that was revealed. Right. Senator Warner refuses to speak the truth about how one of our whistleblowers came forward and approached his office numerous times about what had actually occurred, how he wouldn't go along with this fake intelligence manufactured report, was sidelined because of it. And guess what? Senator Warner's office wouldn't even give the whistleblower an email address to send his evidence of this, the treasonous conspiracy that we have now released to the American people. So the complicity, the deflection, and the silence of politicians, of the mainstream media, and of those directly implicated into this speaks volumes.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just waiting.
These new emails, Mr. President, suggest essentially that Hillary Clinton personally approved the Russia hoax.
With Obama.
With Barack Obama. And my question is she finally going to pay for what she did, or does she get a pass again?
So, we had her, and I had her right under the sights, and I told the people, look, you can't do this to a president's wife, an ex-president, and she was Secretary of State, right. But you can't do this to the wife of a president. And if you remember, well, I'll tell you how I feel about it in a second. If you remember, I was at a rally, and it was after the election, and they said, lock her up. And I said, no, look, we won, just relax. And I didn't do what other people would have done, what they would have done. And then they went after me, and they meant it. I said, it's amazing. I always felt that you shouldn't be doing this stuff. And I let Hillary off the hook. I totally left her off the hook. And then I let her off the hook for what? And then I come in and they did the same thing to me. The difference is they actually meant it. And they hurt a lot of people. And it was all a hoax. And now they have it in black and white. No, I think they should pay a price.
How directly?
By the way, it's a very big price. It could be the biggest scandal in the history of our country, but it continues onward. And that continues onward. That scandal has continued from the...
How many people are you surrounded by that are still part of that old system?
It's a good question. As we're finding these documents, going through them, declassifying and releasing them, we are learning more about who is actually directly involved and implicated in this. We're learning more about who may have been in the room and who was loudly protesting against it, recognizing how wrong it was. We have whistleblowers coming forward with their own documentation of their protests and their unwillingness to go along with this. So yes, there are people who are still working within the intelligence community who had a hand in this. As we are identifying them, it will give us the opportunity to make sure that they and others like them who, again, are so willing to weaponize intelligence to subvert the will of the American people can no longer work in the intelligence community.
Yeah, so I really like what Gabbard's doing. I think that she's got a good position. She's got a good her context is right. When she talks, it doesn't sound like she's full of shit. Like, it's pretty clear that she's about the American people. And, previous Democrat, military veteran, constitutionalist, congresswoman. All those things. And she seems like she is, and you think about, excuse me, months ago, just to be clear, Susie Wiles kept her Tulsi Gabbard, DNI secretary, away from the main part of the meetings, like they had her at the little kids table or something. But then now, you heard Trump come out last week talking about she's hotter than Mike Johnson, which he's a piece of work. But he was making a point about what she's finding and what she's getting to the table, coming to the table with all this documentation about, and all these whistleblowers. And they have a lot of people coming, cutting and running, coming and giving them the information, because they don't want to go down with that corrupt deep state that, you think about it. There's a lot of corruption that was around the whole Obama era. And, I have this clip. I didn't pull it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it in. I'm going to pull it in because I just seen it. So I'm going to pull it in and I'm going to run it raw because I didn't download it. So I'm just going to pull it off of X here in a second and play this clip of what the hell's his name? Well, it's not here. Hold on, let me see here. Hold on. John Solomon talking about the batch today shows. It's a small clip. It's just a couple minutes. So I'm going to pull it right now. I'm going to bring it in and we're going to play it just so we can get this other piece of this. Then we're going to get to the what Radcliffe
technology. It would.
Oops, hold on a second. Stand by. Let me cue this up. Let's just play this. Hold on, stand by.
John Solomon, let's start with the breaking news. And I believe you might have a little bit of news to break either tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, I do. We'll lean into it right now. So this email was, and these intercepts were part of a very secret U.S. program where we spy on our enemies. And the government has the ability to determine if this email is real, but technology it would have to reveal would be very sensitive. And so there is a balancing act that has played out here in the last few weeks as people decided what to do with this. This is an explosive piece of evidence, but it's just a piece of evidence. We have to now, in the government, find out, did it really happen this way? But I will tell you something that did happen in the summer of 16. U.S. intelligence, when they first intercepted this, began to look at some other things. Could this be true? Could the Russians really have something? Have they stumbled onto a plot? One of the things they intercepted were text messages that showed that the first thing Hillary Clinton was going to do was to turn to Vice President Joe Biden and see if he would take the first blow against Donald Trump. Would he go out right in the middle of July and say, I think Donald Trump's got a Russia problem? Well, they watched that happen in real time, first in 2 interviews, then at a speech at the Democratic National Committee. It led some of our U.S. intelligence analysts to believe that what the Russians had captured was an ongoing plot and that it was really going on. And then a few days later, the FBI opens up, just like the Russian intelligence suggested. What we are sadly lacking is a complete investigation. This 10 years later, Chris Wray's FBI, John Durham's investigation, the U.S. Intelligence Committee, James Comey never fully investigated this. We could authenticate this if we put our elbow grease into it. The government owes us an answer to find out if this is all true. But Joe Biden did make that. Tomorrow morning, we're going to show you how Joe Biden's actions match what the Russian intelligence was predicting would happen.
Yeah, so there you go. That is pretty good information, actually, if you think about it, because what they do is, we know Joe Biden was a fall guy for the whole thing. He was a shill. He was, he was empty suit. He was, not going any. It was just, we know about Joe Biden. We know about the whole thing, all the stuff that happened, all the money laundering and all that stuff. We know that. And so Hillary had, sounds like, control. She's pretty powerful. She is very powerful. I mean, because let's face it, if you don't do what she says, she'll have you taken out, right? We know that. There's a big death count list with Hillary, right? So anyway, I just wanted to bring that into this because I thought I got just before I went live, I seen that clip and I wanted to bring it in. So, and I didn't have time to download it. So I just did it like that. I have a couple of these that we're going to do tonight, but let's listen to this. What Radcliffe says. And, I don't have the same, lack of a better word, feeling that I have with Tulsi Gabbard, or, as I do with, Director Gabbard, as I do with Ratcliffe, right? Because we remember what Ratcliffe did in 16. So, but, Rubio too, right? Rubio was not, was a anti-Trump, never Trumper and, back then and all that stuff. And he's, apparently on the surface, he's doing great work right now. And I don't know because, these are politicians, regardless of what they say out of their mouth. You can't turn your back on them because you don't know if they're going to stab you in it when you're not looking. So let's listen to this clip with Radcliffe real quick. Stand by. Okay, hold on.
I think I hear you saying is there is still an opportunity for indictments, potential prosecutions, accountability from those people who may have lied under oath, like John Brennan, James Comey, and perhaps Hillary Clinton.
Well, that's why I've made the referrals that I have. DNI Gabbard has made referrals.
Yeah.
And why we're going to continue to share the intelligence that would support the ability of our Department of Justice to make fair and just, bring fair and just claims against those who have perpetrated this hoax against the American people and this stain on our country. Well, Maria, so part of what came out last week was about how John Brennan, Clapper, Comey, they all pushed the known fake Steele dossier into intelligence community assessments and as the basis for Crossfire Hurricane and all that. But what hasn't come out yet and what's going to come out is the underlying intelligence that I have spent the last few months making recommendations about final declassification and sent that to the Department of Justice that will come out in the John Durham report classified annex. And what that intelligence shows, Maria, is that part of this was a Hillary Clinton plan, but part of it was an FBI plan to be an accelerant to that fake Steele dossier, to those fake Russia collusion claims by pouring oil on the fire, by amplifying the lie and burying the truth of what Hillary Clinton was up to. And you're right, Maria. John Brennan testified to John Durham in August of 2020. He also testified to the House Oversight Committee in 2022. Hillary Clinton testified before John Durham under oath in 2022. James Comey testified before the Senate committee in September 2020. All of that's within the last 5 years. And much of that testimony is frankly completely inconsistent with what our underlying intelligence that is about to be declassified in the Durham Annex, what that reflects. And so, you know, Pam Bondi does have a strike force. It is a different Department of Justice, a different FBI, and an opportunity to look at how these people really did conspire to run a hoax, a fraud on the American people and against Donald Trump's presidency. And so coming forward, we understand that they did this, but now we need to understand how they did this. And I think that's why you see the left losing their minds over this, Maria, saying, why are you spending time? This is vindictive. You're going back. This is Donald Trump, you know, seeking retribution. It's not. Donald Trump's election by the American people was a statement, Maria. They said to everyone, we know what you did to Donald Trump, and we reelected him because we know this was all fake. We know it was a hoax. Now we want to understand how you did it so that it can't happen again. And that's what this declassification process that we're undergoing right now, what's going on, why it's so important, and why there can be accountability and preventability to prevent these same people that did it in 2016 with the Steele dossier, with the Hunter Biden laptop in 2020 from doing it again in the future.
You know, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
When I see Hillary Clinton, I just get that feeling, you know what I mean? So what do you think about that? What's your thought on that? I'd like to know in the comments what you think about Radcliffe and what he just said. Now, I know that I guess it's possible for people to change and do things differently, but, you know, again, Radcliffe was DNI, and all the stuff that's coming out right now is the information that was there apparently when he was in charge, when he was the director. So it's you know, maybe the wool was pulled over his eyes and he's not as bad as it seems, and it's not like it. But, you know, I don't believe in coincidences. So how does this work out? You know, it's just the question mark that I have. And a lot of other people have the same question mark. So we'll just keep an eye on him and see where this goes. You know what I mean? See what he does with this. You know what I mean? So Caroline Levitt was out today I have a couple more before we move on. I want to talk about the Open Society with the Russia hoax, and then and Caroline Levitt talk about the Durham Annex. So let's get into it. Stand by.
Well, I think a major organization of the national security apparatus, at least here at the White House within the National Security Council, has indeed taken place, and the president entrusts his current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, and our ODNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, to make the necessary changes to ensure classified intelligence, especially that could implement or hurt the national security of our country, does not make its way into the hands of irresponsible actors who want to politicize that intelligence for their own end. Since you brought up the declassification report that was put out by Senator Grassley today, I'm glad you brought it up, because this should be a story every outlet in this room should be covering. This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
Here. So this email is July 2016, coming from, like I said, the VP of the Open Society Foundation, saying, quote, HRC, in reference to Hillary Rodham Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue, say something like critical infrastructure is a threat for the election, to feel a menace, since both POTUS and the VP have acknowledged that fast IC would speed up searching for evidence that is regrettably still unavailable. Now, basically every word that I read in that chain of sentences is more explosive than the next, but the first line is basically admitting that this was political from the get-go, that this was coming from the Clinton campaign, all of the Steele dossier. But I think what the real buried lead here, and why you're seeing Mike Benz and sort of, I think, the war room really theory of the case when it comes to Democrat, but more precisely establishment censorship, crackdown on election infrastructure, is the word critical infrastructure being used here, right? Setting a pretext, using it as sort of this fake crisis to then justify a very robust expansion, not just of federal government power, but particularly getting the IC involved. Why do I say that? If you look at a lot of the lingo, sort of the text, whether it was DHS, it was why CISA was created, but a lot of these global censorship operations expanded their purview over content being shared and sent on the internet, not because they thought they had jurisdiction over speech, but because they declared misinformation or tweets that, the posse was sending out about the 2020 election as critical infrastructure. And people may recall they actually, I believe it was, no conspiracies, no coincidences, but January 6th of 2017, where it was under the Obama administration, where they actually changed elections and classified them as critical infrastructure just to lay the groundwork for propping up CISA, which we know really was ground zero for a lot of these censorship activities. And when you keep reading, talking about how you can really manufacture evidence to support the theory of this case, quote, in absence of direct evidence, CrowdStrike and Threat Connect will supply the media, and GRU will hopefully carry on to give more facts. I think this really dovetails with the other damning sentence that Mike Benz and all of us have really been, I think, freaking out over, which is the idea of, quote, making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. In other words, trying to get the American people to go crazy and become totally apoplectic over all things Russia, Russia, Russia. We're going to get into Leonard's ties to the Ukraine war, because I think there's an interesting connection, like there always seems to be with anyone who's somehow involved in democratic politics. But Leonard, who, like I said, is, essentially the number 2, number 3, he was the acting VP when they appointed a new president over at Open Society. If Denver wants to put these pictures up on screen, this is someone someone who was actively posting. He essentially runs the Russia desk at the Open Society Foundation, but has posted a ton in the 2014 years, 2013 kind of surrounding times about essentially fomenting color revolutions in Ukraine. Quote, how democratic transition can unfold in Ukraine. Quote, a reformist agenda for Ukraine can be a template for how an effective and democratic transition can unfold. He has a lot of articles published really honing in on Ukraine, which I think makes his involvement with the Russia hoax all the more, frankly, sinister. And just the last sort of point to really get to in this email, the quote, Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. Outcome is far from clear as Americans are more keen on their own woes, and Hillary is hardly good looking as far as credibility is concerned. Anyway, things are ghastly for U.S.-Russian relations. Look, Steve, I think the top line assessment of this is that it's case closed, obviously.
Yeah. So, do you believe that everything is connected as I do? I believe that it's all intermingled. I think that the whole thing with Russia hoax and Ukraine and Joe Biden having that prosecutor fired and the whole thing that happened with Trump and the Russia hoax and the continued because they still talk about, even though they've proven that the Russia hoax was exactly the Russia collusion was a hoax, even though they've continued to prove that it was not real. They still, on all the channels on MSNBC, I get into these debates with these people, these liberals, and they still say that the Russia collusion thing was Donald Trump and he really did that and he was found guilty and he was impeached for it and all this stuff. And and we know that and the Ukraine perfect phone call was not a hoax, and it was a perfect phone call. He was calling to find out exactly what was going on with the Russia hoax when he was talking to Ukraine, Zelensky. The whole thing is all connected, and that's my take on it. I'd like to know what you think. If you want to hit me up in the comments, that would be great. Really appreciate the conversation in the chat. Whether on Rumble, Getter, X, or YouTube. All right. So now let me get in here with this. I want to get through this topic. I have one more thing, and then we're gonna get off this topic because I don't want to beat it to death. But I'll continue to go down the road. But we got Russia shit going on. We got Iran threats and all kinds of stuff we're going to get to here shortly. We got a few topics before we get there, but check this out. Trump on Trump on Newsmax coming out and talking about this here. Hold on.
These new emails, Mr. President, suggest essentially that Hillary Clinton personally approved the Russia hoax.
With Obama.
With Barack Obama. And my question is she finally going to pay for what she did, or does she get a pass again?
So, we had her, and I had her right under the sights, and I told the people, look, you can't do this to a president's wife, an ex-president, and she was Secretary of State, but you can't do this to the wife of a president. And
do you still feel that way?
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about it in a second. If you remember, I was at a rally, and it was after the election, and they said, lock her up. And I said, no, look, we won, just relax. And I didn't do what other people would have done, what they would have done. And then they went after me, and they meant it. I said, it's amazing. I always felt that you shouldn't be doing this stuff. And I let Hillary off the hook. I totally left her off the hook. And then I let her off the hook for what? And then I come in and they did the same thing to me. The difference is they actually meant it. And they hurt a lot of people. And it was all a hoax. And now they have it in black and white. No, I think they should pay a price.
How directly?
By the way, it's a very big price. It could be the biggest scandal in the history of our country, but it continues onward. And that continues onward. You know, that scandal has continued from the.
Yeah. So I know that's kind of it's not the exact same, but it's the same. He just Trump keeps talking about the same thing. But now you think about, and I just keep remembering the clip where Hillary is talking to, I don't know, somebody in the mainstream media, and they were talking about 2020 and how they stole it. And they're saying that if it was stolen, why didn't they steal it for me in 16 when they tried to steal it, but they overwhelmed the vote too much with Trump in 16 and he won, but they definitely tried. They've proven that as well. Anyway, I don't want to get into the stolen election stuff tonight. We got too many other things going on. Now I'm going to shift gears. Okay. So, we got, well, before we get into that, I think I want to do something else real quick. I want to, so we all know that Hulk Hogan, died last week from a heart attack, and, a lot of people didn't realize that Hulk Hogan, was suffering from cancer, and he was literally dying from cancer. And most people don't know this. And this came out in the last couple days that, and he was at a cancer society for these kids that have cancer. And he was, and if you don't know, Hulk Hogan actually gave his life to God a few years ago, recently, I don't know exactly when, but he was a born again Christian, and he was going over there to this cancer society and praying with these kids and giving them inspiration and stuff. Check this clip out. It's a short one, but I just think it's a great way to break up this bullshit with the Russia collusion and the Epstein files and all that stuff. And it's a good way to segue into the next thing that we're stand by.
Something very special here today. I've got Lauren here, and we just want to make sure there's nothing but perfect health. Pray for your speedy healing of this beautiful body and this beautiful person. The soul is intact, the soul is beautiful, the soul is one with our Lord and Savior. But right now, there's nothing but perfect health, rapid recovery, and it's already done. There's no excuses, because in your will and your way, all things can be done because it's all the said. In Jesus' name I pray. Thank you for the healing. All is well, even now. Amen. It's already done. It's already done. When you pray like it's already done. That's what they want. That's what it says. You don't, well, my back hurts because I'm an old wrestler. I've had 10 back surgeries. Could you please heal me? You have to have total faith, unwavering faith. And he can heal you. So it's just up to you to believe, have total faith. And you pick the reason. It's very special. Very special to all of us. It's special to my Lord and Savior, which I thank God is really Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So we love you guys so much. Thank you for coming by and letting me steal some energy, because I tell you what, I was getting tired. And now I'm still over energy, so you're going to need a nap in a year, because you're going to be tired, because I slept in there. Okay. Just hang in there and be tough. Just when you always pray, just thank you for the full healing. You're just so grateful. Okay, this is just a very temporary situation. Okay, love you. It's so nice. I knew I was going to be fine stuff today. Thank you so much. That's that time. Now I got to sign up. Whatever. What's going on?
We didn't know you were going to be here. Listen, man, we came yesterday. I got this is
How'd you want to pickle?
you and everybody else. Okay.
That's good. How are you? Are you?
Yeah, it reminds me of humanity when I see stuff like that. When I see, regardless of, he was dying. He had cancer, stage 4 cancer, and he was just over there taking care of those kids, and as entertaining as Hulk Hogan was as a wrestler and all that stuff for the kids, if you remember, they used to always talk about things like, you know, eat right and take your vitamins and all that stuff. That's how those wrestlers back then were. Nowadays, they're a little bit different, but they're always talking about taking care of yourself and being respectful, and you know, and I just that touches my heart when that kind of thing is going on with people. How they go and they do humanitarian things for children. I think it's great. Anyway, all right. So where are we at? Let's get back to it. We got tons of corruption, right? All the time corruption. We got there is a bill banning government from trading stock. I think that's a great one. That was one of the things that they signed yesterday. Check this out. This is Caroline Levitt talking about the ban on government stock trading. Stand by.
If you talked with the president about his position on the stock trading ban bill for Congress, he obviously had pretty loaded comments about Senator Hawley. There's some reporting that they've since spoken. What is his position on the current status of that bill?
The president has spoken to Senator Hawley, who called him, and the president took that call. As the president said in the Roosevelt Room yesterday, conceptually, he, of course, supports the idea of ensuring that members of Congress and United States senators who are here for public service cannot enrich themselves. And the reason that this idea to put a ban on stock trading for members of Congress is even a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she is rightfully criticized because she makes, I think, $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of approximately $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio, this was a fascinating statistic to me, grew 70% in 1 year in 2024, and her portfolio outperformed every single large hedge fund in that same year, and even more than doubled the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. So I think the president stands with the American people on this. He doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. As for the mechanics of the legislation and how it will move forward, the White House continues to be in discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill.
Do you love her? I love her. I mean, I think that Caroline is great. I think that her, she came up through War Room, when she was running for Congress in, I want to say New Hampshire. And, she was a firebrand then, and she is now. I think she's doing a great job. She's really representing the people, and the president, and you say what you want about, when I look back at the last press secretaries, I think about Sanders was really good, and then McElhaney was pretty good until she left the White House and started talking shit about Trump. And when she went to Fox News, I thought that was pretty crappy. And look, the Democrats have had nothing but garbage up there, and but I guess Peppermint Patty did find out early on when she was press secretary, Psaki, that her career would have been over if she would have stayed with the Biden administration. So she got out early. She was smart, and they put that I don't even know what you call her. The smartest press secretary ever, Jean Pierre. I mean, but anyway, my point is she's doing a really good job. I really think that she is clear. She gives facts. She didn't stutter. She's on point, and I think that she's doing a great job over there. I really do. I think I have. Oh yeah, we're gonna. So we're going to segue into this Palisades thing, but on the way there, we're going to talk about Japan just for a second, because there is something that we might not see sometimes, and that is this. In Japan, they have these houses that are these apartments. They're like 150 square feet. I mean, they're little coffin apartments, and I think that we need to be paying attention because that's what they're trying to do to us with all this 15-minute city stuff. So let's check this out. I know it's not completely relevant, but it kind of is in a sense. It kind of goes with what they're trying to do to all these 15-minute cities. And we've covered the 15-minute city, the globalism, the no cars, everything's electric, all that stuff. We've covered it. No gas stoves, all that stuff. Remember when that was going on a couple years ago? We covered it. Tucson has these 15-minute cities where you can't have a car. You got to take electric vehicle and all that stuff, right? Anyway, let's play. I got a kick out of this. Just look at what this looks like, and it could be. I don't know. Let's just get a look at it. Hold on a second.
That right there has 4 apartments inside. This is the world's thinnest apartment. This right here is the wall. So these are the stairs. The stairs are very vertical. And you have this little rail to hold on to. And trust me, you need that. All right. This is one of the apartments already, but the one we're going to is up here. All right, we're here. So, this is the door. Take our shoes off because in Japan, you should never enter a house with shoes. Take these guys off. All right. And this is the apartment. Let's start off with the bathroom. So this is the shower right here. There it is. All of this. I'm going to get into the bathtub. Here you go. So if I'm in the mood for a bubble bath, that's what I have right there. Oh my God. All right, so let's go to the living room. Actually, first, this is the kitchen. Your cooking station. You have one stove, one sink, and then you have a little fridge in there. But this is your apartment. This is your living area. In total, there's 11 square meters. That's 119 square feet. And yeah, this is where you sleep. This is where you chill. This is everything. But take a look at the view. How nice is this? And here you actually have surprisingly good storage. I think it's even good enough to sleep someone. I mean, if you bring a friend, look at that. I think someone can sleep here. So you guys might be wondering, like, this is nice, but where do you go to take care of your business? Where's the bathroom? Where's the actual toilet? So you got to go outside, push this, and it's actually right here. Remember, this is the thinnest side. So we were just on the other side. That's your master bathroom right there. And they've completely made use of every last space. So toilet's there. And then that right there, the thinnest part of the entire apartment is for your sink. So how much does something like this actually cost? Well, if you want to rent this place, it's about $266 a month. What do you guys think? Would you do it?
What do you think of that? Huh? Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I would not live in that. That's like the size of my closet. anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. I got a kick out of it because we talk about these 15-minute cities, these 250 square foot coffin apartments and all this stuff, and I just was like, wow, that's small. I was wrong. It's 110 square feet, so it's about the size of a closet. I mean, walk-in closet, right? We got it pretty good, don't we? We got it really good. You know what I mean? All right, so we're going to get into this now. I want to set this up for you because Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass has done the same thing that they did in Lahaina, South Maui, when they burnt the neighborhood, the oceanfront property down. They burned it down. And I covered this last week, but it's relevant because of what's going on here in California. I'm in Northern California. This is Southern California that we're talking about. But what they've done is I don't know if you remember, Trump came out here right after the fires, 4 or 5 months ago, and it was still winter, I believe, when the fires happened in Palisade, Malibu. Malibu's a very uppity, high rent district, oceanfront property, beautiful spreads on hillsides. I mean, it's where all the movie stars and that's where they buy the Palisades and and Malibu, and they have a bunch of movies that they made there and stuff like that. It's a really ritzy area, and they burn it out, right? So so Trump comes to the town hall with Bass, and she says that permits are going to be readily available right away, and they could go in and clean up their stuff. And remember, if you have a fire and your place burns down, even if it's there was thousands of structures burnt, houses, I think it's 12,000. It says it in the video when we get there. I got a couple, 2 or 3 videos on this. Very important topic. Okay. He's like, hey, are they going to be able to rebuild? These people are ready to rebuild right now. They're not trying to wait, right? And she was like, oh yeah, we're going to be able to do it. They haven't issued any permits. As a matter of fact, they're trying to buy the property from everybody and put, 15-minute cities or whatever the hell they're doing. But check this out. Let's see. Which one do I want to start with? I almost want to start with Mel Gibson, but we're not. We're going to go right down. I have these numbered. I'm going to just go with it like this. John Brown report first. SB 549. It's criminal on its face. We're going to start there, and then we're going to go right on down the line here because I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 4 videos about this topic, and one with Mel Gibson. So stand by.
The Pacific Palisades fire, which, if the insane news cycle buried it from your memory, began on January 7th, 2025, and caused massive destruction across the Pacific Palisades, Topanga, and Malibu, with nearly every structure north of Sunset Boulevard in Pacific Palisades being obliterated, causing severe air pollution in Los Angeles. The crisis was compounded by water supply issues, as 20% of fire hydrants in the more elevated parts of Pacific Palisades ran dry. The containment efforts reached only 8% by January 31st of 2025, after 24 days of battling an inferno that 7 months later is still being investigated as arson. In the aftermath, Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 549 into law. This legislation grants Los Angeles County the authority to purchase fire-destroyed lots at minimal cost, a decision that directly contradicts Newsom's previous statements to homeowners that government-driven property conversions would not occur.
I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor of down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
The bill mandates that from January 2026, 40% of the housing in affected areas must be affordable, and it establishes a, quote, resilient rebuilding authority, end quote, that overrides local community decisions on rebuilding efforts. This strips away local control, likely displacing original homeowners who don't fall under the criteria of Section 8 recipients, and enables rezoning without their input.
The people that are in charge of this bill, they're the people in charge of letting the whole town burn down, okay? You can say whatever you want, but all their decisions, all their negligence, all that, that's why we have no town in the Palisades. Why would we ever have them in charge of rebuilding what they let burn down?
With SB 549, the authority can buy back land and offer it first to original owners. But if they cannot afford it, they lose their homes permanently, setting the table for Smart LA 2028, led by the City of Los Angeles' Information Technology Agency, a government technocracy that is building the 2028 Olympics on the charred remains of its citizens' homes.
Technology enables the City of LA to efficiently and ethically improve the quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors. In other words, when done right, technology makes us smarter. That's why the City of Los Angeles strives to be a smart city. And there's never been a more important time for Los Angeles to be smart than now, as we prepare to host the world in the 2028 Summer Olympics and Paralympics.
Meanwhile, the LA Rises public outreach campaign, launched by the survivors to support recovery efforts, is undermined by Newsom's policy shifts, which prioritize government control over the restoration of homeowner rights and local autonomy.
What they're proposing is a separate government entity to be comprised of political appointees, not people elected by you, who would have centralized authority over construction permitting, development, land acquisition, and other key decisions that will shape the future of the Palisades.
In this brave new world, the people of Pacific Palisades are not rebuilding their lives. They are being rebuilt by a government that ignored their cries for help and sees opportunity in their suffering, an opportunity with motive.
It's like California is being run by a criminal operation, and the goal is the biggest land grab in the history of the United States of America.
But the question isn't whether this was planned, it's whether the people of California will stand idly by as their homes, their rights, and their futures are consumed by the same fire that started it all. Their time to take a stand is today, and it isn't tomorrow. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Yeah, so, it's crazy, dude. Like, what they've done to that community is just unbelievable. And, and this is not like a area that is like low income or whatever. People that have money live here, and I'm just shocked that they have not been able to rebuild. It's crazy. I got some more. And Gavin Newsom is a slimeball. And if you don't know about Gavin Newsom, he is a complete slimeball. Most people know about Gavin Newsom, but I mean, he is completely literally torched California. So we're going to keep going here. And then stand by.
Newsom wants to do the Maui plan. What do you think the Maui locals think of the Maui plan? Yeah. I'm sorry, there aren't any more locals living there anymore. They all had to leave town. Do you think the people of the Palisades or Altadena are going to be consulted about how their areas are reimagined by Newsom and Bass? No. Absolutely. No, it'll be more like the Chairman Maui plan.
They want to use you to get what they want and then throw you away.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most pathetic, and despicable things I've seen was when Karen Bass, in order to shift the blame and culpability from herself, wiped it on the fire chief and threw her under the bus for speaking the truth about how the department had been defunded and were without resources. They didn't even have water. Now Gavin has asked for $40 billion of federal dollars to do whatever he has in mind. Why would we trust him with that kind of funding? See, along with that federal money should come a federal investigation into what the heck happened. For a few pennies more. A federal investigation. I mean, Karen is, she's having an investigation into why she made the decision to go to Ghana. Which is absurdity on 4 legs. Federal investigation, yep. We should have one of those to see what the heck happened, and a further federal oversight to see what happens with any federal funding that we get, so that we have transparency, that it's audited. Not because he's doing it, but because anyone's doing it. Because hopefully he won't be there anymore. Amen to that. We need to see what's happening with our money, with our federal dollars. California deserves leadership that does more than acknowledge a problem. It deserves leaders who take real, meaningful steps towards addressing these threats to our community. You deserve better. Our firefighters deserve better. And above all, the people who've lost everything deserve better.
Yeah, right.
It's time for accountability. It's time for leadership that doesn't wait until it's too late. And most of all, it's time for the government that stands with its people, not just in words.
Right.
They got to go through the motions, do something meaningful, build back better. Anyway, thank you. That's about all I have to say. I guess enough. Should be enough to get me in trouble.
I'd now like to introduce you to Randy Economy. He was going to talk to you all about the recall in general.
Just a few hours, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, set up during the 1960s, announced they're ceasing operations. They're one of the funders of NPR and PBS. But then in congressional testimony a few months ago, they said only 1% of NPR and PBS money comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. But now NPR and PBS say they might have to shut down some of their operations because of it. So what is the truth? The truth is, look at the Annenberg Foundation, one of the main funders of NPR and PBS locally, but also the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It raised over $100 million in the Palisades fire relief and has given zero money and says nobody's getting any of the money. It's all hundreds and hundreds of NGOs just in that network that raise money and then give it back to themselves.
Fire Aid, that star-studded concert that raised $100 million for wildfire victims. But where did all that money go? Investigative journalist Sue Pascoe has been digging for answers.
A reader sent me a little note and said, I've never seen any fire aid money. How do I apply for fire aid money? And I thought, well, I've never thought about that. There's 12,000 people, basically 12,000 homes gone. Those people probably want to know where the money is. This will be an easy task to find out. Mm-hmm. So I contacted the Annenberg. They never responded.
And the Annenberg is
Foundation, because they are overseeing the wildfire funds, yes. So I emailed them several times. They never responded. I called them several times. They never responded. And finally, it was like almost 2 weeks later, a woman got back to me and she said, I'm sorry for the delay. The person you need to speak to is Chris Wallace. He's a media spokesperson for wildfire funds. So I contacted Chris and I said, victims want to know when they can get their money. Seems like a very simple question. Mm-hmm. He said, basically, they don't. All this money are going to nonprofits, and then nonprofits will take care of making sure the money's distributed. So I looked at initially they gave $50 million to about 120 nonprofits. And I looked at these nonprofits, and one of them said, we help mobile home parks. And there were 2 mobile home parks in the Palisades, all low income. And so I contacted the people there. They had never received any money. They had never heard of that. When you go through, I would urge everyone to just go to the nonprofits that are listed. If you want a good laugh, I mean, one of the nonprofits cleans preschool bathrooms. Well, after the fire, who knows? Maybe there is a preschool bathroom that needs cleaning.
Yeah. In other words, a lot of these nonprofits are ancillary, if you will.
That's a nice way of saying it.
So they can say, oh, we're giving away 80% of what we get, but then it comes back to them through the other groups that they give to them. So they give to all these groups, they give to all those groups. It's a giant scam. Then they have all the fundraisers, the rest of it. And NPR gets $500 million in taxpayer money. It goes on and on. These groups are elitist owned. They are anti-free speech. And they have almost no viewers now. Now, there have been some good shows on PBS, don't get me wrong, Nova, Frontline, you name it. But over the years, they've gotten more and more political, and it's a joke. So I like diversity in media. But at the end of the day, it's Foundation, CIA, globalist-run media, and it's a fraud. And so let NPR, let PBS, nationally and locally, stand on its own. And NPR had propaganda in it 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But you tune into it now, it is just unforgivable garbage. You have the head of NPR saying recently, well, telling the truth's not always the best thing to do.
In our normal lives, these contentious conversations tend to erupt over disagreement about what the truth actually is. But the people who write these articles, they're not focused on the truth. They're focused on something else, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years of working with these brilliant folks, I've come to believe that they are onto something, that perhaps for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done.
So the New York Times saying, maybe we should get rid of the Constitution. Anybody that says investigate is wrong. Anybody telling you not to investigate wants you to be in a cult. You should always investigate anything and everything everybody says. Ronald Reagan says trust but verify. If they say don't investigate, you're in a cult. Or they're trying to get you in a cult. So I don't think NPR and PBS are gone yet, but everybody's already tuned out of them already. It's like Colbert getting canceled. He has almost no viewers. He canceled himself by becoming a government mouthpiece. These people have a way of taking care of themselves, and it's good riddance to all of them. That's my take. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Next Real Alex Jones. We've got.
Yeah, so, I mean, that whole thing is about they're going to burn people out of their homes, and then they're not going to let them rebuild, and then they're going to fine them for their property not being cleaned up. And then when the bill's so high that they can't pay it, they have no choice but to give it to the county or the state or whatever. It's corruption, dude. It's so bad. And you know, can you imagine if that happened to you? What it would be like? I mean, it's just it's crazy. It's very sad. So we talked about this last week. I don't know if you know about what happened, what's transpired today. Trump sent 2 nuclear submarines to the coast of Russia to get prepared to strike. And I don't know if people realize the severity of that, because I thought that we had a deal working with Russia and Ukraine to end this thing, and it just keeps progressing. And we covered it last week, where Martin Armstrong said that in days we're going to start into this war, and by the middle of 26, we're going to be in a nuclear war. I don't know if you heard that. I don't know if you get that, but that's a real thing that Martin Armstrong was talking about last week. And so with the nuclear submarines being deployed, and I know we have them out there for protection. So if Russia or someone else, China or whoever, I guess Iran, whoever shoots weapons at us, that we can defend ourselves. I know that that's the general idea, but now I have this. I'm going to play a few clips. I'm going to save the Armstrong one for later on, just to wrap this thing up, because I think it's important that you understand what we're up against here. So, stand by. Let me just play it, and then we'll talk about it. I have a bunch of clips on this stuff. It's a major thing going on. Iran talking about releasing sleeper cells in the United States and Europe. I mean, there's some stuff going on right now and the media is not telling you about this stuff that's happening. So that's why we do. We tell you the truth, okay? And this is the truth, okay? This is from InfoWars. I have a couple from the show today where they were talking about this, and he took a couple calls. He took some calls from nuclear weapons specialists from submarines. So check this out. I'll be right back.
Trump has announced he's deployed nuclear submarines in response to argument with Russian official. Trump orders nuclear submarines move near Russia, all in response to one of their Security Council members, Dmitry Medvedev, former president of Russia. Trump orders nuclear submarines move near Russia after foolish and inflammatory statements from Medvedev. So we are really blessed to have such a giant audience. I ask only for people that have worked in the nuclear forces or in the detection areas of that, or think tanks, people that have direct understanding of the doctrine and all of it. And my concern over the death cons, looking at it, are we at DEF CON 4? Or is it gone to taking the trigger, and taking the safety off and going to DEF CON 1? How big a deal is this? What is their view on it? We have John in Arizona, Navy ballistic submarines. That's the nuke submarines that deliver the weapons. You got Nicholas in Arizona from Russia, but lives in Arizona or in Russia, on the Russian army and his experience there. Andy from the Navy wants to comment. Jim in Alabama, Missile Warning Center via Air Force on Russia. Christian in Texas, Persian Missile Unit, Military U.S. Army on Russia escalation. So I'm going to go to John and then Christian in that order. John in Arizona, Navy ballistic submarine. You were on that. Give us your take on this, sir.
I would definitely say doctrinally, you're not wrong. I would definitely say doctrinally, you're not wrong. It's an escalation for sure, especially for the president to say something like that openly. But for sure, doctrinally, we always have forces that are ready. Without speaking to anything specifically, we're always ready. The guys that are out on blue or gold are always forward deployed, and they're ready to deliver ordnance.
And the Russians announced a month ago they moved their subs closer. So what you're saying is Trump's just telling us what's already in place.
He's giving you the forewarning, yeah. That again, doctrinally, we're ready to do anything, and we're at the dance essentially. So I couldn't tell you exactly if it's 2 or 1, but it's a heightened state for sure.
Developing news in the last 24 hours as we're hearing that there is an Iranian state threat alert for attacks in the United States and Europe that has come out. I'm going to be sharing with you the latest video footage and articles. Take a look at the headlines with me. You can see this coming out yesterday. U.S. and NATO allies warn of increasing Iranian threats in Europe and North America, and they are saying these are attacks that could take place on our soil. Now, also take a look at this. The U.S. Virtual Embassy Iran joint statement on Iranian state threat activity in Europe and in the United States. Now, this comes as we are hearing, take a look at this just coming out. The U.S. must agree to compensate Iran before nuclear talks, says the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arachi. So he is saying the United States must pay Iran for the damage that was done to their nuclear facilities in order for them to come back to the negotiating table. Now, the U.S. hits back at Iran war compensation demands. You can see this coming out today, August 1st, 2025, saying this is ridiculous. I'm going to share with you the article. Iran says that it has plenty of scientists left to restart their uranium enrichment program, despite the U.S.-Israeli strikes. Iran coming back very aggressively, saying, we are not going to stop our enrichment programs. We will achieve whatever we want with uranium, which even if it means nuclear weapons. Now, this comes as well as, take a look at this. The anti-U.S. axis isn't dead. It's just resting. Russia, China, North Korea, they failed to help Iran when it was getting bombed by the United States, and yet their four-way coalition lives on and will become more ominous. And this comes as today as well. I shared with you the breaking news as soon as it had come out that Trump says he has now moved 2 nuclear submarines after Russia's Medvedev warns the United States of potential nuclear war. That's war with Russia and the U.S., and that is not an exaggeration. I shared with you the back and forth rhetoric that unfolded overnight, and today we're hearing that they are saying that Medvedev is saying that Russia is threatening the U.S. with potential nuclear attacks. He says, remember the Walking Dead series that you love so much, Donald Trump, and the automatic nuclear launch strike systems that Russia has. And today, Donald Trump said, okay, this might be inflammatory, ridiculous statements, but just in case, we're moving nuclear submarines into position for potential war with Russia. So a lot going on today, August 1st, 2025. I'm going to be sharing with you the latest on this. Let me know your thoughts. Are we going to be going to war? If so, put war in the comments. If you think we're going to be able to stave off war and have peace, put peace. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Where are we going to be going here with Iran? Now, in addition to that, as I mentioned, a lot unfolding today with Russia as well. But I'm going to get you caught up on the latest. As always, I'm going to...
Yeah, so I have, it's crazy. I have this, pull this over here. This is from President Trump on True Social, based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation. I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And that was from President Trump today. And that is definitely not, you know, it's not a, you know, like a great opportunity for us. Then we have, pull this one over here, show this to you. Says, get this over here. Remember, everybody, I'm a one-man show, so I don't have a bunch of people helping out here. It says the anti-U.S. exile isn't dead, just resting. Russia, China, and North Korea failed to help Iran when it was getting bombed by the U.S., and yet their four-way coalition lives on and will become more ominous. So this is it's not moving. This is not good. Let's see here. Let me pull this next one. Iran hits back U.S. hits back at Iran compensation demands. Let's see, where's the other one? U.S. must agree to compensation before nuclear talks, Iran foreign minister says. And what do you think about this? I mean, do you think that this is smoke, or do you think that we need to be concerned about nuclear war hitting our land? Now, I have some video that goes with this. I think the important one here is going to be this next one from Ram. Play this real quick, stand by, and then this is all shocking information though. What happened?
Start off with some video footage so you can see it for yourself what's coming out. Then we're going to dive into these articles to get you more details as to what's been taking place. Let's go ahead and take a look.
And we do have this statement as we stay in the Middle East from the U.S. State Department. They are talking about this Iranian state threat. They say, quote, "We are united in our opposition to the attempts of Iranian intelligence services to kill, kidnap, and harass people in Europe and North America in clear violation of our sovereignty. These services are increasingly collaborating with international criminal organizations to target journalists, dissidents, Jewish citizens, and current and former officials in Europe and North America. This is unacceptable. We consider these types of attacks, regardless of the target, as violations of our sovereignty. We are committed to working together to prevent these actions from happening, and we call on the Iranian authorities to immediately put an end to such illegal activities in our respective territories," end quote. And that is, of course, a quote, as I mentioned, from the U.S. State Department. We do also have this post from the Bureau of Counterterrorism as they say, "We are united in our opposition to the attempts of Iranian intelligence services to kill, kidnap, and harass people in Europe and North America in clear violation of our sovereignty. We know that the U.S. and 13 of their allies, including the UK and Canada, coming together to condemn what they call a surge in assassination, kidnapping, and harassment plots by Iranian intelligence services that are targeting people in North America and Europe." A lot to discuss there out of the Middle East, so I do want to bring in David Dowd, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. David, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Pleasure to be on, Josh.
And first, I do want to talk to you about the statement that I was just reading there from the U.S. and 13 allies there, including Canada, the UK, and a lot of other allies. What is the significance of that statement, and what are they really saying?
Oh, the significance of it is that we're finally recognizing what the Iranian regime has done since its rise to power in the late 1970s and 1979. There were spates of assassination campaigns, not just in the Middle East, not just in Iran, but of dissidents, opposition figures, people that had fallen out of favor with the regime in France in the 1980s at the hands of Iranian agents, including through people that would become affiliated with what would later turn into Hezbollah. So this isn't anything new for the Iranian regime. This continued throughout its history up until the present, and we're finally acknowledging it. We're finally acknowledging that the issue, and when I say we, I mean the collective West is finally acknowledging it. The issue coming out of Iran is not just nuclear weapons, and the problems with Iran are not just confined to the Middle East. They are targeting people, be they Iranian citizens on our soil, or our own citizens, or any other citizens. They're targeting people. This is reaching our part of the world. This isn't just confined to the Middle East. This isn't just a problem. If we turn a blind eye to it, like some of us would like to do, then it'll just go away.
Want to try?
Yeah. So this is two parts. This is Iran and Russia, and my concern, I think, the big concern is that are we paying attention to what's going on with the nuclear war and all that stuff. Now, I have this clip from Martin Armstrong from last week. And if you was here last week, I apologize. I think it's important that we share this because this is why. When, there's all these different people that, that you run into, Some are like prophets, and they tell you stuff that's going to happen in the future, and it comes true. And, you know, after it comes true a few times, you're like, oh, I better pay attention to this. When they're talking, I better be listening. And then there's these other ones that are like, oh, well, the model says this, and then it comes true. And, you know, and what he's saying is based on the computer models of his research, we're going to be in a nuclear war by the middle of 2026, but that it's going to start, he said, in days. And I'm going to play the clip right now in a minute. I'm just going to kind of set it up for you so you understand what's going on. Now, I have children. I mean, I've lived a pretty good life, you know, and I'm not afraid to, you know, to die or whatever. But for my children, this is where, like, I'm like, wow, like, why can't we have no wars? Why can't we just get back to like being able to have a family and not have to worry about, do I need to take my family to higher ground? Do I need to find a bunker? I mean, what are we up against? Because this is the thing. So if let's you, I'm going to use a scenario. Let's say that Iran bombs Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean, or you know, Russia nukes Los Angeles. Los Angeles is 500-600 miles away. I'm probably going to be okay for the time being. But what happens is, soon as that happens, is you ever seen the movie like Mad Max, where everybody's killing each other and taking everybody's food and all that stuff? Then it turns into this you know, a new scenario. Even if they only drop one bomb in New York, it's going to have a complete panic on the world or on the United States, and everybody's going to be freaking out. And then the stores are going to have no food. There's going to be no fuel. There, you know, the lights are going to go out. All these things are going to happen. And we've talked about this a lot. In the first 3 days, panic sets in after about 3 days of no power, we'll say, just, you know, they take the grid down or whatever, because all these things are on the table when we're talking about these foreign countries, you know, attacking us, right? And we know that that's a China, that would be a China or a Russia thing to take the grid down, take the power out, and then it can, you know, and then they just sit back and watch us self-destruct, because that's exactly what would happen. Nobody knows what to do in an event like that, and it turns into, you know, complete anarchy really, really fast. Within 3 days, it gets into this. Now, I want you to hear what I keep saying what Martin Armstrong has to say, and pay attention to what he's saying, because I think it's important that we at least know. He literally says you need to be prepared for nuclear war. That's what he says. Stand by. Listen to this.
Well, our computer, which isn't, you know, it's been phenomenal in forecasting war. All right. And I stood up in 2011, said the war cycle turns up in 2014. That's all videotaped. It's documented. 2013, I stood up and I said, okay, fine. The computer's projecting this will start in Ukraine. All right. So these are not my personal opinions. And what's going on now is basically the computer is showing what we call a panic cycle for next year, which I've never seen a panic cycle on the yearly level in war. So it's showing that escalation should start from next week going up. I think Trump has played into this wrongly with his demand for this 50-day nonsense. What do you really expect to do? You got war coming. Every European government is planning for war. You had Merz come out and say, there's, you know, diplomacy's off the table, forget that. I spoke to, in 3 different countries in Europe, I asked, can you please name one European leader that has attempted any diplomatic communications with Putin? No names. Nobody has. The only one that even bothered to call him was Trump. That was it. And Europe was all upset about that. They need war. Otherwise, their economy is going to collapse. The German economy has shrunk already by 3%, if not 5%. All right. They're losing and by shrinking, I mean the number of jobs possible are declining, not just a recession. So, and Germany's 25% of the GDP of Europe. It's done. It's finished. All right. So they need this war to keep going. The whole reason Hillary started the Russiagate was because back then they were trying to get into create a regime change in Russia. They blackmailed Yeltsin back then. Okay, they asked me to put in $10 billion into this Hermitage Capital. I refused. Who was behind the Hermitage Capital? Edmund Safra, but also Bill Browder. Who is Bill Browder? Maxwell's right-hand man. So this is all kind of really tied in. And who put me in contempt of court because I refused to basically cooperate with them? James Comey. So this, Comey was well aware of what was going on. And it's now come out that, he basically covered up for Hillary. When somebody, is interviewed by the FBI, they always take notes because you can be prosecuted for lying to the FBI. And when it came to Hillary testifying before Comey, he didn't take notes. Why? Because he was part of it. So what they're doing with stablecoin is that it's the same exact MO as what they did for the Civil War. They issued national banknotes in 1863. The same scheme. They told the banks, if you buy our debt, you can then issue currency against it. Okay, so what happened was that's what you got. You can look on our site. We give you pictures of all the national banknotes that were issued in 1863. So that's how they sold the debt to fund the Civil War. So this is what's going on here.
So you're saying this is a new form of war. This is a new form of war bond.
Yeah, pretty much that's what it is. It's the exact same thing as 1863.
Yeah, so you hear that, right? He says that the models show that just like in 2014, what he was saying was in 2014, he predicted, or the models showed that Ukraine and Russia was going to start their war, and they did. That I don't know if you remember when that happened. That was before that's when the first part of that war started in that area, whatever. And he's saying that based on his computer models, he sees that we're going to be in a nuclear war by mid 2026. So, I mean, you take it any way you want, but I'm just like, man, I need to be prepared for whatever the hell's coming. We have all these different things going on simultaneously. We have the Ukraine thing and Russia. We have the China thing, and we have the Iran thing, and all these things. I mean, kind of freaks me out. I do my best to be as positive as I possibly can, but I mean, it's just something that I need to pay attention to for the sake of my children, and I hope that you do the same thing, that you protect your children by paying attention and being prepared and having like a generator and food, spare food enough to last, at least 3 months. And, you have some, connections to where you can get different things that you might need, so you can barter for different things when all hell breaks loose, or a place to go when all hell breaks loose in the cities. Because if you're in a city, you're screwed, just completely screwed. So anyway, so what's her name? Dr. Erica McIntyre was fired today. She was the labor secretary. Let's play this clip. So we were talking about why the job numbers were so screwed up because you depending on who you talk to, the numbers don't add up. And what happened was they found out yesterday or today that the labor secretary was manipulating the numbers to make it look like the economy was not recovering after all the things that Trump has done. So let's roll this clip.
President just fired the commissioner of labor statistics after she botched multiple job reports. I wouldn't call it botched. She put out incredibly fake ones where 80% or more of the jobs they said didn't exist. Then she did better than expected job reports for Trump, but then now she revoked those. And so Trump's putting in somebody to find out actually what the truth is. Erica McIntyre was a Biden appointee that should have been weeded out a long time ago, says Nick Sordo. I agree. Total sabotage operation. And here's Trump. I was just informed that our country's job numbers that caused a huge stock market problem today are being produced by a Biden appointee, the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, who faked the jobs numbers before the election to try to boost Kamala's chances of victory. This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that estimated the jobs growth in March 2024 by approximately 818,000, and then again right before the 2024 presidential election in August and September by 112,000. These were records. No one can be that wrong. We need accurate jobs numbers. I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. McIntyre said that they've never heard that name, that they were only 73,000 jobs added, a shock. But more importantly, that a major mistake was made by then, 258,000 jobs downward in the prior 2 months. Similar things happened in the first part of the year, always in the negative. The economy is booming under Trump, despite a Fed that also plays games, this time with interest rates. Then they lowered them twice and substantively just before the presidential election, I assume, in the hopes of getting Kamala elected. Just how did this work out? Jerome Too Late Powell should also be put out of pasture. Thank you for your attention this matter. And that caused the Dow to go over 600 points. Yeah, I think the jobs are better than they're saying. I think she did this. She just has a history of being a complete fraud.
Yeah, so there you go. The deep state's thick, man. There's the people that are in the administration. You have thousands and thousands of people, and if you don't have somebody going through and vetting every single person, this is the kind of stuff that you come up with. Just over there doing her thing, and manipulating the numbers for labor, Yeah. Anyway. Hold on. I want to play this clip because we need a little humor right now with all the shit going on. And thank you for being here. Please subscribe to the channel, share this information everywhere, tell everybody you know to join us on Friday nights at 8 p.m. and stand by.
Republicans just want sexy white girls with perfectly round titties in their ads. We're here to say no to that. Democrats are the party of ugly ass people. And we want representation, maybe some non-binary Latino midgets, maybe a couple of fat shamikas eating fried chicken and fighting at a Carnival cruise or a Waffle House or some shit like that. Just any ugly people. If they're too ugly to go outside, that's our people.
That's pretty good. All right, everybody, let's see here. What did I miss? Oh, I know it. I missed one thing. I totally did, and I meant to do it. So I'm gonna play this clip real quick. And it's so you have all these people coming out, and they're all going, "I didn't know Epstein. I never hung out with him. I don't know nothing about him." But you could just tell that they're just lying through their teeth. Let's listen to Kevin Spacey on our way out here. Just listen to what he has to say. Stand by.
I was very fortunate that President Clinton introduced me a lot of business leaders in London because he knew I was coming to the Old Vic. Do you know who I never asked for anything? Was Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't want to be around this guy because I felt he put the president at risk on that trip to South Africa because there were these young girls. And we were like, what? Who is this guy? So I will say this.
There were young girls on those flights.
There were young girls on those flights, yeah. And that's been out. They've talked about it. But here's my point. There's a big difference between not remembering that I met some guy and some woman on a humanitarian trip where my focus was entirely on what we were there to do and not remembering whether I went to somebody's island. So I never went to Jeffrey Epstein's island. I did not know him, and I never saw him or her after that morning at Buckingham Palace. He didn't even come to Buckingham Palace.
Is it true that Prince Andrew sought your assistance and wanted you to testify that Ghislaine Maxwell was your guest, not his, during that Buckingham Palace tour?
I heard a report about that, but at no time did anyone ever contact me on his behalf. And as I say, I'm not friends with him. I never saw him after that day.
What do you think about what's happened to him?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to talk about someone else's scandal,
Russia. So they settled on Carter Page. And in order to get a surveillance authority on Page, they had to use the Steele dossier because there was no other credible intelligence.
We find out that there was a freak-off party in Vegas where a guy named Anton, an escort that gets apparently, allegedly, passed around celebrity circles, was banging somebody, possibly a celebrity's wife, in January in Vegas. And there was 7 to 8 people just sitting around the hotel room watching, some that were celebrities. The defense attorney argued, we need to have these names public, otherwise this is not a fair trial. And Maureen Comey, the government, was like, no, we have to protect these names. Why? Oh, it's because it's the same thing she did during Ghislaine Maxwell. That's why we never got any names. So people can speculate, but right now the judge decided to agree with Maureen Comey. We're not getting the names.
James Comey's daughter always seems to be a part of everything from Epstein to the highest echelon of cases. Why would Comey's daughter be allowed under Pam Bondi's Department of Justice? I would have removed her immediately, not just because of the case, but because of the information that they learn while they investigate the case. See, not everything that they know, they prosecute.
I said, I think it'll be like all the other cases, and she'll put on a show trial, and they'll limit all the information. They'll suck up all the witnesses. And then all the lawsuits filed on Ghislaine Maxwell, all the lawsuits on P. Diddy, all the other lawsuits on Nexium, and all. I mean, it's just hundreds of organized sex trafficking pedophile cases, not just Epstein, get sent to her. And then her daddy famously controlled the files and used it for control, just like J. Edgar Hoover did. The CIA would find pedophiles, not just in Afghanistan, but other countries, and put them in charge as mayors and as council members and as village leaders because they found they were the most loyal and didn't even want money. They just wanted kids, but they would get angry and say, we want more Viagra. That was in the news, that the CIA had to fly in cases, pallets of Viagra for all the mayors in Afghanistan and had to supply them with little boys. This is their management system. This is how they control things. You know the people going to Epstein Island and Zorro Ranch and Peter Nygaard, similar facility in the Bahamas, they know they're going to be videoed raping kids. And it's not 15, 16-year-old girls. That's because in these cases, they limit it to those girls.
Epstein told me he worked with the CIA. The FBI tried to get me there to interview me. They only wanted to interview me in person. They would not interview me over Zoom. They organized emergency visas for my son and I. They were arranging for us to be put in first-class flights, 5-star hotels, but my child's father wouldn't let us travel, so thank goodness, in fact, because a lot of weird stuff happened with a lot of the girls who were interviewed by the FBI. And it's very frightening, like I said, not just for the victims, but for everyone in the world, when we're all being lied to like this.
4 months ago, Bondi raided it like she said she'd do the day after she learned it happened. They refused to turn it over. They kicked the FBI head out. The FBI raided the FBI. And then Bondi did the right thing, talked about it on the TV, sent the files out. And then I've talked to the FBI, multiple sources. They said, yeah, almost no one is volunteering to go watch it or investigate it. And I can't blame people at the end of the day. I would want to go look at 14 terabytes of kids getting raped, but some of them signed up for that, so they're stepping up. But why aren't hardly anybody reportedly willing to investigate? It's not just that they don't want to watch kids getting tortured. You think they want to take on the globalists, Bill Gates and people, the King of England? They know your family gets killed. So the reason we've gotten in this position is that evil understands that and gets people to commit such horrible acts that then society just doesn't even know how to process it. And then when evil gets away with that, all these other evil people see it and join in, and they like it, and they go, my goodness, this is a free reign. And the evil grows and grows and grows and grows until it brings down society. We're going to go over the edge into a cultural, spiritual black hole. We're basically already there. I'm in a deep state, toe-to-toe legal battle.
I wanted to throw that in there because Maureen Comey got fired and all the stuff that's going on with, the Comey, Brennan, Clapper, all that stuff. It all goes together. I want to just end with that right there. I want to say thank you for being here. God bless everybody. Please subscribe to the channel, share this information everywhere, and we'll see you next Friday. Probably do a special report tomorrow night on the current things that are going on. But until then, God bless everybody. Check us out on X, Inspector Web Pod, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. God bless everybody.